Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We have some new faces in the audience. Each week, a few more people are coming back personally, in person, right? And that's great. We're now open, and for the New Yorkers, or people who are visiting New York, it's great to see you. I'm trying to get some of the people who I know are in New York to come back in and to welcome you. We're running around doing our best, so welcome. And I want to welcome also the people who are watching us on the different platforms. Everything we do winds up eventually being on YouTube, Instagram, see if I can remember them all, Facebook. Everything we do on Thursday or Sunday, you can watch again on any of these platforms. Many of you, as I'm speaking now, I realize you'll be hearing this probably 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now. So we're going to welcome you too. And we're going to say to everybody, however you're hearing us, and whenever you're hearing us, it will be at the perfect right time. Louise Hay would have said in so many words that there's no accident that you have found us. There's no accident that you're on the call or you're in the room. I never know what I'm going to say for week by week exactly. I mean, I do have a lesson that I follow, but I trust one thing, that there be something that will be uplifting or helpful to everybody who's on the call. I've been a student of this teaching myself since somewhere just before 1980, and probably 78 or something like that. And I was interested in metaphysics right around 1980, 79, 1980. And while I was learning about New Thought, I was drifting around from place to place and reading many books. I wound up first going to a Unity church, a couple of Unity churches, and Unity was the perfect destination for me in the beginning because I came out of a Catholic family, and Unity is a New Thought group, and Unity would use the same parts of the New Testament that I had heard all my life. The only thing is, Unity would interpret them from a New Thought perspective. Okay, so with Unity, I wasn't thinking in terms of the Son of God as being the Savior. I would think of the sonship, or I would understand that what they were talking about is that each of us are aspects of this divine life, this divine love, that we're all one with the one. And so they were very, very helpful for me, because I don't think if I had come into a religious science center in the beginning that I would have known what anybody was talking about. Because when I first came to a spiritual center or a science of mind center, when people started talking about the thing itself, I didn't know what that was, and I would feel like I should bless myself because, when I was younger and I'd think of God, it would be, you approach the idea of God or source with, I won't say fear and trembling like they used to say in the old days, but it was a different type of approach. And we would have the thinking, many of us who came out of, I'll say, the Judeo-Christian system, all the different religions like that, that God was a guy and powerful as can be, right? Who could forgive and who could, he could punish, he could do many, many things. So when I started coming into New Thought, they taught me very early on, they called it the universe, a little bit more than God. They say the universe so loves you that it responds to your every thought. And I thought, well, how about that? How about that? The universe so loves you that it responds to your every thought. And those words were given to me by a practitioner from Boca Raton, Florida, Her name was Mary Kurowitz, and I think she took me on as her project for a year or so. And she said, Greg, you were always, younger you were very spiritual. She said, everybody's spiritual. She said, but you were praying, she said, I don't mean to be insulting either. She said, you were praying to a lesser God. And she said, in the sense that you'd be praying for God to do something for you, to fix you, to save you, to in some way intervene in your life and to make it better. And she reminded me of the term foxhole prayers, like when you're in deep trouble, you pray, help me, please, and all of that. And she said, what we learn here in these classes and what we teach her in New York and what Louise Hay was all about, Louise Hay said it's all very simple. It's very simple. She never said it was easy, but she had said it's very, she said it's all very simple. What you give out in your day-to-day living comes back to you. If you're a person who is focused on seeing the good, if that's really your focus, then you may not realize it, but you are a practitioner of this teaching. A practitioner does what? They practice. There's not a soul alive that I know of, and certainly none of our ministers. We've had great ministers here. We had Dr. Raymond Charles Barker, who founded this place, and we had Dr. Stuart Grayson and Rev Wade Adkisson, and we even had Louise Hay, of all people, here. Louise learned what she learned at this center, and but none of us are perfect, but we practice. So if you keep practicing, what we're teaching, you're going to then have what we call a demonstration. Okay? In a similar way, because the power can work in either direction. If I keep practicing that my life is terrible, and if I keep thinking that the world is falling apart or my world is falling apart, if that's my underlying set of beliefs, it's like life is unfair, if I might be nurturing that idea. Nobody understands me and poor me, and any thoughts or whole bodies of thoughts that I'm a victim or in any way, the universe so loves me that it responds to my every thought. So in other words, you get to be right. It was Ralph Waldo Emerson who influenced Ernest Holmes and came down to Louise Hay too. Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a great writer, probably one of the greatest of in the century he lived in, said, the finite alone, that means like all of us who are finite, the finite alone suffers, has wrought and suffered. And he said, and the universe lays back in smiling repose. And so what he was getting at there is, God isn't out to get anybody. It doesn't work that way. The universe isn't out to punish anyone. It doesn't work that way. Just the opposite. Emerson, who influenced Louise Hay, would say, and has said in so many words, that the universe is always attempting to get your attention. We dream. It gets this there. We have these aha moments where you just know. You just know something, you know that you need to make a change in some area. Now, where the heck does that come from, right? It's not your conscious mind. You get these thoughts from a part of you that's not conscious. It's deep within you. Louise Hay would say, deep within you there is an infinite well of love, and it's attempting to radiate out from you in all directions, and it's always attempting to inform you and guide you, and that it will do if you do what? If you allow it to. There's always guidance. The thing is, people, myself, I'll speak, we block it out. We think we have a better idea. That's like Ford Motors. I have a better idea. I don't listen to this stuff. but there's something within you that's always attempting to woo you, to guide you, so that you can step up and step out of whatever it is that you've created in your own world to hold you back, okay? We drop the idea here that people are doing things to us. We don't live our lives as victims in this teaching. We understand consciousness. So I'm operating at a level of consciousness, and I behave in a certain way at my level of consciousness. And my consciousness is pretty much going to be the totality of what I understand. And I've grown a lot, thank God. I'm old enough that you would hope, right? And, and you look at your own life, you look back, and you think, oh my God, why did I do some of these things I did, right? But you did them, and here's the line from Louise Hay's work. Everyone is doing the best that they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness that they have. And that's such a powerful idea if you can really take it in and believe it. Because if you can really embrace that everyone's doing the best they can with their understanding and their awareness, well, then all of a sudden you can let a lot of people off the hook that you've got judgments about, right? You can say, okay, I want to be innocent of judgment, right? I know that. Intellectually, I've been taught that all my life. So, now I got a new saying from Louise Hay. Everyone is doing the best they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness I have. So if I keep on hanging on to anger, I can think of a couple of people coming to mind right now. If I stay angry at them, it can't possibly hurt them, right? And what does it do for me? It just takes away my moment, it takes away my joy, it causes me to live in the problem. So a spiritual person who's practicing this teaching really wants to get to the place where you really don't have any opinion about what other people are doing. In fact, on a spiritual level that they're operating at their level of what they know. It was told to me by another teacher, probably in my early 30s, Dr. Bill. He used the word evoluting. I don't even know if it is a word, but he said the whole world is evoluting along. Evoluting along. He says, you are and everyone else is. And he says, those of you who are drawn to this teaching, he said, you've been given such a gift. It's because you know that you're an aspect of God or spirit. You know that you are an individualization of spirit. You know that spirit is within you. And it does its best to guide you and inform you if you will let it. So I think pretty much everybody on the call, if you're on this call, you will accept that idea at least. So you know that you're one with spirit, and you know that it's attempting to guide you. And I already said it can guide you through quiet moments, aha moments, where you know and you know that you know. It's just there. And now you may ignore it, but it's there. When I used to teach these classes years ago, I would ask the students, because the students will always say in classes, I don't know what to do, Dr. Greg, what should I do? I said, well, first of all, I'm never going to be telling anybody what they should do. That's not what we do here. But the answer that was given to me all those years ago is, there is always that which is within you that knows the answer to the question you're asking. So as a facilitator, which is what I'm facilitating this class tonight, I will say that to you. There is always that which is within you that knows the answer to your own question. And then someone taught me a little secret how to work with that. They said you could always ask yourself, if you're dedicated, you really want to move through some of the things that are in your life, and you're trying to say, I don't know what to do, it was suggested you could always ask yourself the question, what's the most self-loving thing I can do right now? And you know something, you're going to immediately know the answer to that question. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to immediately act upon what it is. The first answer is always going to be right. When you ask that question, what's the most self-loving thing I can do? It comes right to you. Now, I've tried it myself, and then sometimes I'll say, oh yeah, but, and yeah, but, I'm not going to do that right now, yeah, but. So then what we encounter within ourselves is a little bit of resistance. And that's where our stories will enter the picture. Like, I'll do it down the road. I'll do it when this happens, that happens, or the next thing happens. So resistance is a challenge, because if you were in a 12-step program, there's a saying, resistance dogs our every step. And it's because there's a part of you that has an internal guidance system that you can always access, and you know what you need to know. So then why don't you do what you know you need to do? It's a big question. In those spiritual programs, most of the 12-step programs, there's another expression they say, willingness is the key that opens all the doors. If you come into this teaching, you're about self-healing, you're about forgiveness, you're about slowing down and meditating and considering what's the most self-loving thing you can do in any given moment. Then there comes the part of it, the willingness to take those next steps. When we come into these classes on Thursday, Sunday's usually more of a traditional metaphysical lesson. On Thursday, I don't say we play with these ideas, but we throw these ideas around, we consider them. You'll hear key phrases that have been taught to me over the years by some really great teachers. They'll say, well, you're the author of your own life, your own experience, okay? You're writing it, the script, right? And you can be like Shakespeare. You can be creating this person to be the villain in your life, and you can create this person to be the clown. You create it all. And you may not realize it, but you have tremendous power where? Within and in your own life, okay? You're the only thinker in your mind, right? And you have access to unlimited power. Ernest Holmes said we are each individualizations of this one life. Now, I heard that said 30 years ago, but I didn't really think about it too much. It's a big statement. Each of you are individualizations of this one life, meaning everything that this source is, this God is, you are too. Okay, the Christian scriptures would, say the Father and I are one. I mean, you are that. Or you can go to the other stories, the prodigal child. He or she's off living in the wilds and doing all kinds of crazy things. They've forgotten who they are. But the story will go, as soon as the person, remembers and turns to the source, you're one with it again. Louise Hay would say, in our practice, we got to keep remembering who we are. I am an individualization of source. I am one with God. That ought to be electrifying. You have power to use. Ernest Holmes said, you have power to use that's greater than you, of which you are a part, and you can use it. I mean, you have unlimited abilities, but then you carry on this conversation, if you're like most people, of where you're not enough. Louise Hay would say, the bottom line, she said, I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of people in my life, and I've heard all kinds of very different problems. But when you bring it right down to the very essence of it all, she says it comes down to, I'm not good enough for most people. I'm not good enough. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I'm attractive enough. I don't feel like I'm smart enough. I don't feel like I'm adequate. I feel like I've made too many mistakes. I feel like it's too late. I feel like, and so all of this is what people carry. Now, how can we lighten the load with all that stuff? Any ideas? Self-care. Yeah, self-care. I think the first thing is to be aware that you're doing it. It was liberating to me to learn things like the book, The Four Agreements, was helpful book. Because in the Four Agreements, they talk about all these things since the time a little boy, in your case, little girls, little boys, we've taken on all this information of what good is and what bad is and who's right and who's wrong. And we have a whole bunch of stuff, and we're like sponges as children. And we're kind of like, we operate from that, and it's been reinforced when we're in junior high school and high school, and by the time we get a little bit older, we got a whole bunch of baloney in terms of belief systems, right? And that doesn't mean the people who taught us intended to hurt us. They passed on the best that they had. Plus, we've all had our own experiences where we've done things that have been wonderful, and we've done things that have been not wonderful, and we have a bunch of beliefs, right? So, as you get involved in metaphysics, we realize, Louise Hay would say, whatever's going on with you right now, it's only a thought you're having about something, or a series of thoughts. And you could really turn that thought and that train of thoughts around if you what? If you really wanted to, right? Because you could keep on going along some line like I've been victimized or I've been hurt or the unfairness of this situation or that situation. And certainly it would be your right to do that. But would it be liberating? I mean, you're a spiritual being who can access the stars and think great thoughts and step into different worlds of accomplishment. But you might be painting yourself into a corner with your belief system. Because we have a teaching that says, Ernest Holmes said it's open at the top. He was talking about the teaching, but it's also open for you. I have an attorney friend who taught me a great line probably around 2010. Her name was Deborah, and she said, Greg, the final chapter has not been written. And I said, that's such a profound statement. It's so absolutely true. So I don't know what she was talking about at the time, but it was like, just stop with it. You don't have to keep that going, do you? Or do you? Because if you have to do it, my God, we'll all say it's certainly your right to, right? But is it taking you where you want to go? I've known people that have been lamenting lost loves, that are, people that have left them or whatever. They've been in painful relationships. Oftentimes the person's departed the earth, and there's still the whole thing that's going on. And I can't make anybody wrong, but the question I would want to ask anybody is, show me how this is working to better your life, right? One of my dearest students years ago, she's passed away, her first name was Susan, and she had a situation with a family member, and it was abuse when she was a child, right? And she kept coming to me and telling me how evil and awful, I won't name, a parental figure was, right? And she said, Greg, I love you, I love Science and Mind, but you can't expect that I'm ever going to forgive so-and-so. I said, I have no expectations of what you're going to do, but I can tell you you're traumatizing yourself every time you even bring this person's name up. And in her case, she became very, very heavy, and she was a beautiful woman, and really, everybody loved her. But you know what? She didn't love herself, and she couldn't accept anything that had happened in the past. So this center is never here to make anybody wrong for being where you are. But it would suggest we all have our patterns. I have mine. They're painfully obvious to me. And, I become aware of them, and then it's not just a New Year's resolution, it's a daily resolution. If you were in a 12-step program, they have, it's a great thing, it's called a 10th step. And in all the 12-step programs, all that means is at the end of the day, people review their day in their mind and where they messed up in their own mind and their own estimation. They resolve to make it right. If they need to make amends to someone, they're going to. But it's a daily amends. First, it's not even amends, it's it's self-assessment. Because if we don't have some awareness around our behavior, how are we ever going to change anything, right? So It's an internal thing we do. On Thursday nights, the question we ask of this group, it's really a simple question, but it's an important question. And no one has to answer. But we usually go around and ask, usually people say, well, I'm from Alabama or I'm from New Jersey, and you can just say hi. But if you want to be just a little vulnerable, the question is, what has it been like being you this past few days, this week? And now people are used to that, because all I'm ever trying to do is get people to be a little bit more mindful of what they're creating. Because if I'm having a week where I'm being really negative and I'm reacting a lot, and somebody asks me, Greg, what's it been like being you this week? And if I want to be honest, I will say, well, it's been hell on earth, because I've been, reacting to everything and everyone. Or you might say, look, I've been catching myself. When I tend to be reactive, I'm slowing myself down. I'm pausing. I'm stopping. Stop in the name of love. We play with some of Diana Ross's lyrics. You stop that train of what we call causation, because thoughts are creative, meaning my thoughts will create a reality, especially if I keep doing them, right? So the tendency of a person's thinking starts to show up in their life. If Shirley's on the call tonight, I don't think she is, she always talks about life is like a mirror. So if you have a whole lot of negativity or a whole lot of positivity, it's going to be mirrored in your experience. So that's when we ask the question on Thursday. It's never to get into anybody's personal business at all, because I barely take care of my own personal business, but it's a reflective question. What's it like being you? And usually, people say, like, I'm mindful, I'm taking care of myself, I'm attempting to. I catch myself wanting to kill my husband or whatever, but I don't, So that's the kind of thing. It's more for you to get into the habit of becoming mindful of what's going on with you. Jimmy gave me some notes, but I think I already did most of the question and answer. I think the thing now, rather than going into a lesson that he put in front of me, I'm going to go over a couple of the talking points of Louise's, and then any of you have any questions, we'll do it that way, because I'm going to tell you, when I first started doing these groups, it's right after the AIDS pandemic hit America. And the book came out, I think, in '84, You Can Heal Your Life. And there was a church down the end of the street where I was living, and I went to the class. And some months later, the facilitator asked me if I would facilitate the Louise Hay material. And I said, I'm a real estate person. I don't know anything about this, but that's what started my journey. And I have been facilitating these groups forever since. So it's like seems like forever, but the thing that was wonderful for me in those early years is I saw people actually get better, and at a time where there wasn't any medication. So it was quite something to behold.